exactly. Skinny does not equal health. We know that. Just
Right.
the same way as overweight doesn't necessarily equate to bad health. So, you could be metabolically unhealthy and be quote thin. There's
Yeah,
actually a name
skinny
for that.
fat.
Yeah, TOFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. So
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma.
Hi, Sheila. Good to see you again.
hi, nice to see you. Thank you for having me on your show.
I have the honor of interviewing a pediatrician, a board certified pediatrician.
Thank you.
And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you because we both are like in where our fields overlap. I'm a dietitian and you're a doctor, and we both deal with weight loss. But your field is even more intriguing to me because you deal with specifically with pediatric weight loss. Am I correct?
Yes, yes. Yeah, you and I are both trying to help people be super healthy. And, I am a pediatrician. And so I've spent my whole career, dedicated towards kids' health. In the last couple of years, I left clinical medicine here in the United States, started my own coaching business because I specifically wanted to help kids be healthier, especially in the weight department. And my approach to doing that is working exclusively with their parents.
I love that. And that's something, before we get into that, you have an interesting story how you even got into like your own practice or your own business. So let's take a step back and talk about
Sure.
that. I remember you were telling me when we first met, and I think it's an interesting story. So share a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, I have a long interest in weight and health. I was an overweight child myself when I was, I think the first time I kind of recognized I was overweight, or when I started to gain weight more rapidly, when I was around 10 years old. I'm one of five kids. Not every one of us in the family was overweight. My parents weren't overweight, but for some reason, the foods I was eating and probably the amount I was eating was leading to storing extra weight on my body. And so I didn't like that. I didn't want that, but I didn't know what to do. And the method back then was calorie restriction. So I remember going to the doctor and having my pediatrician tell my mom, "You've got to get her to stop eating." And
Wow.
he limited my calories. He wanted me to limit my calories to 1,200 calories a day when I was 10 years old. So he gave me a pamphlet that had all the uh, all the calories, like an apple, 60 calories. I forget exactly what it was, but at the time I memorized it. I was so
At
desperate
10.
yeah, I was really, really trying to follow that. Um, but the problem now in retrospect, the problem I realized was it's not the calories, but it was the ultra processed foods that we were eating as a family. Um, and that those foods, really had a hard time stopping eating them. So I couldn't restrict my calories to that. That combined with the nature of those foods and the high sugar content, and that how that affects somebody's hormones, just led to weight gain. Uh, and
And
so
ultimately, these ultra processed foods are rich in fats and sugar, and they do tend to be very high in calories. And people
yes,
don't, but
exactly.
I understand what you're saying. They also have that, addictive nature that when you combine those, simple sugars and fats, that's just a combination we don't have in nature. And that's the
They're
secret
literally
sauce.
designed in a lab to keep us eating them.
Yeah.
Doritos is a big brand here, and, I was reading this article about Doritos, and every single Dorito chip doesn't have the same flavoring on it. And that's on purpose so that it's like playing a slot machine, really. It's the same kind of affects your brain the same way kind of, playing or gambling or a slot machine does. You would eat one chip and say and it would have a lot of salt, a lot of the flavorings, and you'd be like, "That's amazing." And then you would eat another chip and it's not quite as good. So you're like, "Oh, well, I need another chip." And so they
What?
design
Are you
Yes,
serious? Oh my god.
yes. So these
That's like
these
evil genius.
Well, what are these food companies trying to do? They're trying to make money. They're not here to protect our health. They're not here to protect our kids' health. They are literally, legally obligated to make money for their shareholders. So when we realize that as parents, I don't think that they're necessarily trying to harm people's health, but the data is very clear now that these foods do harm people's health. But it, it it's they're not doing anything to ameliorate or make that situation any better for people. So they
Yeah,
keep
it's like they're
selling it. They
trying to
just
make
want
money and
Yeah,
we're just, casualties.
yeah,
So
and their whole message to everybody is, well, you should be able to moderate. You should be able to limit the amount of food that you eat. Which that's part of the problem of this diet culture and diet messaging that we've all received is like, oh, something is wrong with me because I literally can't stop eating Doritos, or I don't want to stop eating Doritos or whatever food it is for you. And so that's part of what I feel like no kid should have to
yes, at 10
struggle
years
with.
old, that's crazy. Like
I
the times
know.
are different now, but I can imagine like that happening today. I hope it doesn't happen today to tell a 10-year-old, like a 10-year-old girl that she, especially a woman, like a young lady, a 10-year-old girl with all the, body image things that start around puberty, that you need to lose weight and you need to stop eating. That strong message. While I know the doctor means well and like technically that, you need to lose body fat for your health, but the language and the methodology and, everything that just sounds, I'm glad you're here and you're healthy and you're not, with any eating disorder. But is that something that you experienced with like having to restrict your calories to that amount
No,
at such a young age?
no, I think I never experienced any real forms of an eating disorder. I honestly just couldn't restrict I I couldn't restrict my calories like that, and I never could follow a diet, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. I have a sister who can easily follow a food plan, made by other people, and but for me, I just never could do that, and I struggled. I struggled with my weight. Fast forward literally decades. So that was I started when I was a kid, and then continued up and down, up and down. I would lose a little bit of weight, then gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, probably the same, um, 20 to 30 pounds. Um, and then, throughout that whole time period, well, I went to medical school and then started my practice, went to medical school residency and started working. And then I did doctors, we work these crazy hours. And I the kind of medicine that I like to do, I liked to work in the hospital with acute care. And so half of my hours were overnight. So I would work 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Day shift, then night shift, night shift. And
That's
now,
just a
and so
recipe for
oh
for
gosh,
metabolic
yes,
disaster.
exactly, and that's what happened to me, in my late 40s, and I gained a lot more weight, and I just felt terrible. I had low energy, and here I was, like, trying to help people and help families, and I wasn't even living my own life the right how I wanted to. Yeah, and yes, it was choices I made. I chose that job because I had a young child at the time, and it was great for me, because I was barely away from him. So, I just that was what I really wanted was just to spend as much possible time with him. So if I could work overnight when he was asleep, that was really helpful for me in to achieve that goal. Unfortunately, it was, kind of trashing my health in other ways. Um, but I eventually bumped into coaching um, for weight loss. I had never heard of that before. I had actually never even heard of life coaching before this other doctor at my hospital joined a weight loss coaching program. And, I noticed a couple things. Yes, she was losing weight, but more importantly than that, I noticed her mindset and her affect, her whole brightness changed. She was thriving losing weight. She was so happy. She felt so empowered. She felt so in control of her health. I was like, "What's happening? What's going on?" And, so luckily she had taken the leap first, and then because I saw her great results, I was willing to take that leap myself. And when I learned a bunch of the tools and skills that I was taught in that coaching program, um, I thought, "This is what all of my patients' parents need. This is what we all need, really, to really understand, our thoughts and our feelings and how we get ourselves to do things that we know are good for us and and enjoy it at the same time." So shortly after, a year or two after I had experienced that coaching program myself, I lost 45 pounds and have, easily kept it off since that time.
Wow.
Um, I just feel like a different person, honestly, my whole mindset. So I thought, oh, this is so many kids are struggling with weight. Um, 40% of American kids are considered overweight or obese. Um, and that number unfortunately keeps going up. So, how can we help these kids, you know, improve their health? I don't care about the number on the scale, and if it had no bearing on health, we wouldn't even care. But it does, and we want, our kids to start off on the right foot and create these habits that are gonna last them their whole life. So anyways, I created a program for parents who are willing to really dig in and do make some changes, probably to themselves first, and then to help their kids and to just understand what's really going on today. With our food system, we are swimming upstream, and it's not impossible. It's definitely doable, but you just have to have the right knowledge and the right support and the right skills and the tools to make a dent or make some progress.
Absolutely. Wow, you said so many things that are true and that I see, especially the part where you said that sometimes it's the parent who needs to change, needs to make the change. And sometimes I think that's a hard pill for parents to swallow that like I because I've seen that personally where parents will I don't deal with, like, I don't work with children. Well, I used to actually be a a lunch inspector, but I would just go and, like, check the school lunches and make sure they, like, abide by the laws of the health department, but what I mean is I never had any clients that are children, but I
Mhm,
have some very vivid, memories from my internship when I was in the pediatric, part of my, internship, and I remember a mother came. First of all, her child wasn't obese. Maybe she was just a bit overweight, but that's something that happens, during puberty, and some girls
mhm,
like
mhm.
naturally lose it.
Yeah.
But she came and then she told the dietitian that like, she was my mentor. My and she said this in front of the girl, like, my child needs to lose weight. She just like and they were talking as if the girl wasn't there. And that was so strange for me. And then I saw other examples where the children were obviously overweight, and then the mother didn't know. She had no idea how her kid could be overweight, and then that's kind of weird to me too because it's not like the children go grocery shopping, especially like not an 8-year-old. So talk about a little
Yeah.
bit about that, the role of the parents and how it's not. I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I understand, but.
Me too, me too. And, I have a 12-year-old son, well, he's 12 now, and it's even for myself as a physician, highly educated in pediatric everything, I found myself buying and serving these ultra processed foods, chicken nuggets, macaroni and cheese, crackers, all of the things
I
because
I understand. Me too. I'm a dietitian and I thought I would never give my child any of these things. And then he wanted like a bag of Cheetos and then I just bought him a bag of Cheetos and then but like yeah, I understand like even us as like therapists we have to keep ourselves in check. So I
yeah.
can imagine people that have less awareness and education.
And that honestly, in my own defense, I didn't really understand the harm that these foods are doing. And I think that that is really just coming to light now in medicine, and more doctors are being willing to stand up and say, "Hey, all of these foods that have all of this added sugar, this fructose, all of these chemicals and dyes and additives, they're actually not healthy for us. They're not neutral. They're not just quote kid food. They're not harmless. They're actually harmful." And that can be hard. That can be hard for parents to deal with because kids push back, which of course they do, and frankly, we want them to. It's fine, and so my first step, helping parents understand that is understanding why a child is pushing back. Why does a child want the highly processed food or the ultra processed food or whatever? Why would they rather eat chicken nuggets than a real piece of chicken that's, been cooked? Well, there's so many reasons. And it has to do with how these foods are affecting our human brain. And so you can look at it just from a sugar component. First of all, so many foods have added sugars that so many people aren't aware have added sugars, like spaghetti sauce, barbecue sauce, so many condiments, ketchup, um, but also bread, obviously cookies and muffins and things like that. But if you become, if you can look at labels and really try to, of course, there's also 270 at least different names for sugar.
Yes.
So, and the drug company and the food companies know this. So they and they label things by weight. That's how when you read a food label, the very first ingredient is the heaviest ingredient. So they don't have to say that sugar is the heaviest ingredient. They might add 10 different kinds of sugar so that it's way down in the middle of the all these different kinds of sugar are hidden in the ingredient label. And so
Yeah.
parents need to just have a little bit of education, um, but also to understand that as humans, as an ancient human species, we evolved loving sugar because nothing in nature is dangerous for us or poisonous if it's sweet. So it's been historically very safe for us to eat sugar. It's easy calories and it feels good and it triggers a chemical cascade in your brain that is essentially telling you, "Oh, that was good for you. You should do more of that. Do more of that." So we learn to eat sweet things. And it's normal, it's perfectly normal. So to have the expectation that a child is going to be able to override or first of all, understand that, and then use their thinking brain, their prefrontal cortex, which,
Isn't
you know,
developed.
yes, isn't developed until you're 25 or 26, and they say, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna pass on the sugary thing, and I'm gonna have this healthy, whatever instead." It's 100% unrealistic
Yeah.
for us to expect our kids to
That's
do.
too that's yeah, that's asking the
Most
impossible from
adults
a
can't
child.
most adults can't do that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
But we can learn to. And so I think it helps to have a lot of for parents to have compassion for their kids because, sometimes parents come and they say, "Well, he won't stop eating that. All he wants is, the macaroni and cheese. All he wants is the cereal." And, what my approach to that is, well, we can have a lot of compassion for that person, that little child, because of course they want that. It feels good. It tastes good. They just don't understand the harm it's doing to them, but that's our job as their parent to protect them. And I have really evolved over the past several years to seeing how we feed our kids truly as a safety issue, for their health, their physical health and their mental health. Because now more and more data is coming out showing that ultra processed foods are linked with high levels of eating ultra processed foods are linked with anxiety, depression, and mental health issues. Um, so the truth is, I love to help kids who are struggling with weight. I help their parents, but honestly, the way that I tell a parent of a child who is struggling with extra weight how they should feed their child or how they could feed their child, that's the way we should all be feeding our child. Just because your child is, quote, thin or appears normal weight or whatever, these ultra processed foods are harmful for them.
Yeah. And that's something that's disappointing sometimes because I had a client who was a bariatric patient in her past, and since she's had two, maybe three children by now. But I see how she feeds her children, and it's a very highly ultra processed. But her mindset was just, oh, like, yeah, I ate like this too when I was a child. They're children. This is how children eat. But you would think because of what she's been through, she would make better choices for her children. But sometimes it's just like a mindset that's hard to comprehend. She said, "Oh, they're skinny now." And I don't like when people equate skinny to not having to prioritize health, like,
Exactly. Skinny does not equal health. We know that. Just
right.
the same way as overweight doesn't necessarily equate to bad health. So there's you could be metabolically unhealthy and be quote thin. There's
Yeah,
actually a name
skinny
for that.
fat.
Yeah, TOFI, thin on the outside, fat on the inside.
Ah,
So
totally.
yeah. So there's that, but you could also, sometimes people, might plot out higher or, be labeled as overweight or obese. But when you check their labs metabolically, they're doing okay. They're okay. So they are healthy. So um but for all the parents w- pa- the parents are getting marketed to by these food companies. This is healthy for your kid. Buy this. This is healthy. This is, your kid will love it. This is healthy. And then the kids are getting heavily marketed to so they're asking for certain foods and they want certain foods. And then the culture that we've developed around food for kids, um, here in the United States, you know, for example, sports, if your child's on a sports team, there's almost a snack at every practice and certainly every
Mm.
game. Sometimes they have even sign up sheets like sign up for your kids, sign up to bring a snack for your team. And they're not healthy snack. They're not
For
apples or
athletes.
for athletes. Yeah, exactly. For their candy, their cookies, their whatever the parents decide to bring, their quote treat. Um, and, our snacking culture, our eating culture, and the expectations we have for kids around food, honestly, that is really contributing to the obesity epidemic and the poor health of our kids. We need to really reshift and realign our values for our kids' health with our expectations of what our kids are capable of doing. Um, because
Yeah.
so many parents think that my child would never eat fish or my child would never eat, you know, vegetables or fill in the blank. Um, and like we said, like that's work parents can do. Really taking an honest look at, okay, well, why do you think that? Why do you think
Right.
it's possible? And is that true? Is that thought actually helping you? Is that thought helping your child? Do you want to keep that thought? That's the coaching work. Because if you can shift a parent to believe it is possible for my child to eat real food, it is possible for my child to eat much less processed food. That's a game changer for that child's health
Mindset.
because when their parent can shift, then they are, willing to try things.
Yes, and all for all the parents out there listening, that I know this firsthand because when I was it just brought me back to when I was a lunch inspector. That was the pushback that we got from the teachers. They would tell me the kids won't eat whole grains. They only like white rice. Like we implemented more whole grains like bulgur and brown rice and lentils, legumes. And the first thing they told me, you think kids are going to eat that? You think? And we were like, yeah, they are. They will. We've seen it happen. We've done pilots, and we told them like different methodologies to encourage them to eat. Like instead of serving the kid, put the food in the middle of the table, make it more of a social setting, and let them put the
Mhm.
food. And it was just so amazing to see how, like, I don't know, this was like positive peer pressure. Because if there was just one kid that was familiar with lentils from home or with bulgur or something, then and they ate it, then the other kids were curious, and then the teachers were amazed by how successful they were. Or instead of, we like shifted out, like, different cakes on Friday, they would give them cakes and treats, and we would put slices of fruit like watermelons, or whatever fruit was in season, and the kids loved it. Like, you just put it out there, and like maybe at first they're like, ask where the cake, but they eat what's in front of them, and if some other kid is eating, then they eat it. So I think that could be very helpful for, I don't know, if for families like with siblings, or even if the parents themselves try to stomach it and try some food that they don't like and be a role model.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I recently have been on the wellness committee at my son's school, and
Amazing.
the food director is describing exactly what you're doing. They're trying to shift some of the food that they're offering kids. But it's a big, here in the United States, it's a big problem because the government regulates what food can and be offered to kids in the schools and what gets paid for. And that is all very complicated and political and it's not really based on health for the kids.
Yeah,
What
I'm familiar with US lunches, and that's weird.
I
I've seen
know.
some of it doesn't even look like real food, like, the pizzas and everything. Like, people think here they're like, oh, we need to do better with the lunches, but at least it's real food.
No, ours is highly processed food that is just harmful for the kids. So if you're interested, or your listeners are interested, there's a wonderful. It's just very educational, but there's some wonderful programs. One's called Eat Real. I think it's Eat Real. It's either .org or .com, but that's a a mission. That nonprofit organization is on a mission to change school food, to get real food to kids at school for breakfast and lunch. Um, and they've had amazing success. They go into a school, I guess, and they partner with like the local community and try to get local food. Um, and this just isn't for like, super wealthy districts. And, they've figured out ways to make it work in every kind of socioeconomic status. And so it starts with the belief that it's possible. Our kids will eat real food. And when you look at it as a safety issue, what if we all had the belief, my kid won't wear a seatbelt? He just won't
Right.
do it. He's just
Yeah,
not going to do it. Or my kid
that's a
won't
good
wear a bike
metaphor.
helmet. You know, I mean, what if we really believed that? What if we just kept telling ourselves that? So many more children would, suffer in accidents and things.
And
So
what about the peer pressure? For example, like when with my son, for example, and I'm like, I know he doesn't eat these snacks, but it was like all the kids were eating it, and then he was asking me, and so I just said, okay, and I brought him this bag. And I was just like, wow, now I understand like the other parents. Like it doesn't happen often, but I just gave in at that moment because I didn't want him to feel left out because there was like nothing else for me to give him.
And do you think that's okay? I do. I think, we're not going for perfection.
Like I know I'm overreacting, but I'm just thinking about what's I'm just thinking about
Well,
insulin levels and everything.
because you know, and I know too, and it's actually a little bit hard to see these kids,
Disconnect.
see our kids eating food that I know that that we know as scientists and we know as nutrition people is actually harmful to your cells, harmful to your mitochondria. So when I see my son eating, he just had a hockey game the other day and a bunch of the kids came and one kid came with a huge bag of those sour gummy worms
Oh
or
yeah, those
oh my
two.
god, first of all, they're 1,800 different colors, that unnatural neon, and they're just dripping with sugar, and I see all the kids eating them, and I am just, like, in my mind, picturing what is going on in their
Yeah,
liver,
I just
it's
have to relax, yeah, and also, I'm such sometimes I feel like a hypocrite because I tell my patients, "Look, you don't have to be perfect and, just like 80/20 rule. If 80% of if your house create an environment that you want, and if you're out and you have and I'm not perfect either, like, I'll go and I'll eat, like, ice cream or whatever, so I shouldn't it's just that, our little ones, I just want them to be protect them, so
well, honestly, the smaller they are, the easier it is, honestly, and that,
yeah.
here in the United States, there's a tradition of well, I don't know if it's a tradition, but it's lately become a thing, especially on social media, is when your child turns 1, you put a whole cake in front of them,
Yeah.
and then they grab it or they stick in their whole but, to me, I'm like, "Why would somebody do that?"
And oh my gosh, this is so funny. We did this because of course we're influenced by TikTok and social media. And
Yes.
she made a cake for my son too. And I have the video on my phone. She put it in front of him and he had never had anything like that before. And he just didn't eat it. He just looked at it and he was just like, and then I think he touched it because we did I was really adamant about not giving him sugar, especially
Mm.
for the first year of life. He had never had anything that sweet before. And he
Oh, yeah.
didn't know what the cake was, so that it was like a complete fail. She made it, but everybody else ate the cake, but he just looked
Yeah.
at it like,
Yeah. Yeah. I know, but so we do train our kids to eat, in certain ways and eat cake on their birthday and we could easily change all of that.
"That's true,
Well, not
wow."
not easily, but I mean, we could change that. Uh,
I like that idea. So, change traditions. Why does it have to be I'm gonna think about that on my son's
yeah,
2nd birthday coming up. It doesn't why do you who said that you have to have a birthday cake? Or
no,
it could be
you
something else, a fruit tart or something,
yeah.
or if why 'cause another thing the note that I wrote here, something when you said treat, and that kind of triggers me when parents say, "I just wanted to treat them," or, because they did well
Mhm.
on school and they don't realize that those, rewarding kids with food are gonna be my clients later because they connect to that. They don't realize that, food is nourishment, it doesn't have to be a reward, I try to reverse that, "Oh, I just wanted
Yeah.
to treat myself," but why does treating yourself always have to involve food?
We're creating emotional eaters. We're
Mhm.
creating, this relationship with food that, "Oh, think it will be more fun if I have a cake." Or, we live here near the ocean and I distinctly remember last summer, going to the beach with a carload of kids and one of them said, "This has been a great day and it'll be even better if we could get an ice cream." Which I thought was a hilarious way to ask for an ice cream. But also I think but that's part of what we do. That's part of our common thinking or
Yeah, it is.
it'll be better if I have, X, Y, or Z. You could fill in alcohol with that. You can fill in anything. So for example, like a little kid in a birthday, what's the whole point? It's celebrating their growing up, their age, they're growing up, their relationship, who they are, has absolutely nothing to do with food. We're the ones who like put all this food. It's the same thing with any holiday. Easter's coming up, next week and here. And even if you're not a religious person, even if you're not, a Christian person, people are buying candy like crazy and they have been for the past and it's been on sale in the supermarket for the past 6 weeks. So, Easter candy,
Ah, yeah,
uh,
you eat the chocolate bunnies.
yeah, chocolate bunny, anything chocolate. So it's just how we've trained ourselves to rely on food to kind of boost our mood or numb down certain feelings, and we train our kids like that too, unknowingly and innocently, without really realizing it. So that's
Mm.
that's important work for parents to do too, to not reward with food and to not punish with food. um
Punish with food, that's the other side of the coin. Like, when I was growing up, and I know my parents had all the good intentions, but we weren't allowed to waste food, and that's another thing that I have to help my clients unlearn, right? Like, that it's
right.
okay. Like,
Yeah,
we just
yeah.
get out of we're not in tune with our satiety cues anymore because we're just stuffing ourselves because the food is there.
And when you can teach your clients that and they can pass that on to their kids, like to be in tune with their actual hunger and, satiety and eating when you're hungry and eating real food when you're hungry and stopping eating when you've had enough, like that's freedom. That's peace and freedom around food. Um, and that will get you health, right there. If you just
Right.
do that, you will be a healthy person. If you can develop that kind of relationship with food.
I love that. Wow, this has been such an insightful conversation. And especially like some of the points that you said, especially like the birthday situation, that is something that's going to stick with me. Like breaking traditions, because as much as I'm aware that's something new, like, yeah, why must we have a birthday cake? Or why must certain foods be present? Just like we're allowed to break traditions and make healthier traditions. It's okay.
Yeah, and, yes, and I think the whole idea is, like, just spending a little time thinking about it and why do we have that? And do I really want that or not want that?
Yeah, if you
If
want
you
it,
want
that's something, but at least think
yeah.
about it.
Yes, to just, do it on purpose. When your child is 10 or 12 and they're
Mhm.
have been exposed to a lot of birthday cakes or what, and then you might have a different reasoning for wanting a birthday cake. But when you have a baby or a child,
Yeah.
little
What do
person,
they don't even care.
yeah,
Wow, I
yeah.
love that.
So
Do it on purpose. I wrote that down.
yeah, well, it's important because so much stuff we do is unconscious. And when we can bring it to our awareness, I ask some of my clients, why are you buying the food you're buying for your kids? Not in a judgmental way, not to say you're wrong, but let's look at it. Why are you buying, for example, whatever, chips or cookies, Pringles, whatever, And a lot of them say, because I know they'll like it. I know they like it and it will make them happy. And okay, that's important to know, but let's really look at that. Do you really believe that? It might make them happy in the moment eating, whatever food, but is it ultimately going to make them happy if it's harmful to their body? Um, and I think most parents eventually can get to the place where they understand like, oh, it's I need to use my prefrontal cortex, my thinking brain,
Right.
override their primitive, their immature, by definition, immature brain. Of course, it's normal for them to want that, and sometimes fine. Um, one of the other people I follow, I'm forgetting her name, Low Tox Life. I think I follow her on Instagram because she knows so much about toxins and things in our environment. She says we do what we do most of the time so we can go with the flow some of the time.
I
And
love that.
and I like that too because no one wants to be micromanaged to death. Our kids, that's a recipe for disaster. I don't want to be micromanaging my son. So, for example, this hockey game the other night, he came out and he's eating these big gummy worms. I didn't even say anything, or I didn't even it. I just left it. It's fine. It's
Mhm.
not what I would choose, and I know someday he's gonna make that choice for himself. But for now, I'm not going to, police him and tell him to stop eating those. Um, but I am going to, over time educate him that those are actually harmful for him. Um, and then help him tie the choices he's making with the results that he's having,
Right.
how he feels in his body, his weight, his mood, his energy, all of those things. We can link all of those back, well, to every health habit, our sleep, our exercise, our emotional regulation, and our food choices.
Yeah, and it's true that children, like as adults, they'll usually come back around because that's what happened with me and my siblings. We're four, and all of us are relatively healthy adults. Like, we grew up in a relatively healthy household. My mom didn't have like lots of treats, and we never had like sodas and things like that in the house. But it was true, like when we became teenagers and we rebelled and we like ate, unhealthy. She didn't even judge us. She didn't say anything. Like, maybe she would say, "That's not healthy," or like, but it wasn't anything like we never felt pressure, like, "Don't bring that in the house," or something.
Yeah.
And then naturally, once we got older, we like all of us, we shifted back and like all of us, we like have kids now and things, and we are like, relatively healthy adults. So
Hmm.
it's true now that I'm thinking about it, like once you give them the foundation, and then they don't have to be like perfect all the time, but they have that foundation that they'll return to eventually. Like at least
Yeah.
that's been our experience.
Well, that's a wonderful
Interesting.
gift that your parents gave you. And today, so many kids aren't getting that foundation, and they don't have anything to circle back around to because they've been eating in a certain way since they were kids, and so they're starting off their journey. Um, what's the right way to put it? Kind of behind in a way. I think it. I think
Yeah.
it has. Um, and they
That's the
can
reason.
relearn it. They can down the
Yeah, it's never
over
too
time.
late.
Yeah, it's never too late. It's just so much more work for them. And then you've lost all those years, all those decades. By the time a child gets to 25, 26, or 35, and they've decided, "Oh, my health is a priority for me." You've already had, that 20 years of struggle and 20 years of, um, hopefully not too significant damage to your body. Here in the US, we are seeing so many children with liver problems, non-alcoholic fatty liver
That you
disease.
do. Oh, wow.
Yeah, from it's basically from fructose. It's basically eating too much sugar.
That's
And
a big problem in the States, the high fructose corn syrup that's in
yeah,
everything, right?
huge, yeah, yep, and also, table sugar, so the white sugar you put in your coffee or, sprinkle on whatever, that's 50% fructose. So I think most parents, they might know, like, high fructose corn syrup is bad, but sugar is
It's also
50% sucrose, 50% fructose. So and our certain kids are, literally damaging their liver now at 5 years old, at 10 years old, um, and having a disease process going on that we used to only ever
only
see
see, yeah, in
in
like
adults.
50s,
Yes,
60s, yeah.
exactly, exactly. So
Wow, that's
and
unfortunate.
like I said, their little brains, they don't have the skill set, they don't have the reasoning, they don't have the um, capability to have the meta skill of thinking about their thinking. They just want what they want, which is completely normal. This is why we help them. This is why we step in and we say, no, this is not healthy for you. No, this is a boundary around food. This is what we're going to hold at our house and set the example and create the healthy habit. And then, hopefully they will age into wanting to experience that for themselves as they age.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's starting to be a problem here too with a lot of the child obesity, and a lot of kids are overweight. Whereas when I was a child, if you had like one overweight kid, it was like one or two that would get teased. Now it's like most of the class. And
Mm,
so that's the kind of the rationale too with changing the school lunches and intervening at school, because they're saying, look, if we can just get one meal a day that's like balanced and healthy, we can't control what's happening at home, but at least let's have the school lunch as like healthy as possible. But yeah, I guess it's a worldwide epidemic right now. It's a lot of countries. I know in the UK it's a problem, and yeah, and a lot of countries.
unfortunately, yes, my son and I took a big trip. We went to Thailand and Cambodia over the summer,
Um,
and I was shocked at all the food, all the highly processed food, and just all the sodas and the Coca-Cola and all the processed food that were even in the most rural, like little villages of Cambodia. So I was pretty dismayed thinking, this country doesn't seem to have the healthcare system in place that it's going to need to manage the metabolic health consequences of this way of eating. These companies have infiltrated anywhere to sell their product. And unfortunately, the education of the harm of these products has not accompanied the early infiltration for these companies
yeah,
to just
yeah,
make
and
a
then
profit.
unfortunately, in these third world countries, it's been years. I was there like over 10 years ago when I was backpacking after, yeah, after the military. But I was in Thailand, I was in Cambodia in Southeast Asia,
Mm,
and it was crazy how many like McDonald's and 7-Elevens and all
even
of the,
back then,
and they
yeah,
kind of, yeah, in 2010, and
yeah,
they like equate this kind of with like luxury because they connect it with the
yeah,
West. And it's so
yes,
sad that they don't know that their food is much healthier and
yeah,
nutritious and rich, but they want the like Western food because they equate it with like with this is what like one of the locals explained to me. It's just like they equate it with like, Western and advanced
mhm.
and, better.
Right. Yeah, we are definitely exporting our disease causing foods all over the world. It's shameful, honestly, to tell you the truth. I just, the fact that we know this information and our governments are not willing to put in the regulation and help the people, help all of us little people who need help. Instead, they're kind of working with the companies, with the big food companies, so that they can keep making a lot of money, and then then it ties
Mm.
into like big the pharmaceutical industry, which is huge now in the United States. All of these anti-obesity medications.
That are
Uh,
being a requirement, the age requirements is going lower and lower. It was like
well,
18, 16, 12. Yeah, 12. That
yeah,
was the latest
well,
that I saw.
and now they've started doing testing on 6-year-olds. So pretty soon it is going to be it's going to be for anybody. Um,
Yeah, they're gonna sell
yeah.
it at, at the drugstore.
Yeah, yes, exactly, exactly. And so that, we just have to keep trying to educate people and tell them there is a different way. And it's not painful and hard and horrible. It's actually amazing and
Yes.
freeing and wonderful and delicious. And you can be happy and healthy eating real food. And you won't feel deprived or neglected or, you know, whatever negative feeling if you're not eating ultra processed foods.
Amazing.
It's
On that
possible.
note, because we're running out of time, but I would
Okay.
love if you could give like some, maybe your top 3 tips for parents who are dealing with, like, they want to make change, they want to help their kids that are maybe overweight or obese. How can they start shifting and making that change in their household? What are some of your tips for the parents out there?
My first tip, which I think is hopefully the lowest hanging fruit for people, is that kids, well, humans in general, we should not be drinking sweet things. We should not be drinking soda, fruit juice. Our bodies, our human bodies, we just weren't designed to handle that. So get rid of all of that stuff or extremely limit it. Um, and then my second tip would be to focus on your child's breakfast. And, most breakfasts, at least here, are pancakes, muffins, toast and jam. They're all a sugary breakfast. So that is a setup for a whole day of blood sugar levels that are going up and down and up and down. And that blood sugar going up and down, well, first of all, it's terrible for school. It's terrible for school performance and school behavior. Um, and it's terrible for a person's metabolically. It's not good for us. So go for a savory breakfast. Um, anything really, eggs, bacon, protein. If you could just save leftovers from the night before for dinner, most people have a protein for dinner, a healthy fat, and complex carbohydrate, and just have that for breakfast. But so get rid of cereal. Um, these are hard. They're, because kids are set in their ways and they want that, but this would be a game changer for your child. If your child could eat two scrambled eggs in the morning, the piece of toast or whatever, then they would naturally make better food choices their whole day.
And that's such a cultural thing because here we don't eat sweets for breakfast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like what
Oh,
you
that's
described, like
good.
we eat like for breakfast, it's usually like what you described. It's usually eggs and some bread and chopped salad, like cucumber tomato
Oh, wow.
salad,
Yeah.
and some cheeses. It's
Yeah.
like usually you'll eat sweets and and then that we do have cereals here, but it's common for people to eat cereal for dinner, which is like the opposite of like it's like usually for dinner here it's like late the parents like came back from work and everybody, so it's usually something quick, so it'll be like some
Yeah.
yogurt with cereals or
Yeah.
something quick or sandwiches or something like that, but breakfast is usually always savory here.
Oh, well, that's healthy. That's super great. Here, the marketing is insanely intense for sugary breakfasts, and kids are just marketed that, all the time. And it's
And to
really
start your
unfortunate.
day like that, yeah, that's can be a lot.
Yeah, to
So
start your day like that. Yeah.
I love that. So the first tip is a great low-hanging fruit, and that's so funny that we have that in common because that's the first thing that I work on with my adult clients. Before we change anything, like I like to do it in like micro goals, like you said, and that's the
Yeah.
first thing. I said, like, let's shift to water, water with
Yes,
lemon,
water.
water with mint, tea, but like remove the sodas. I totally
Yes,
agree with that. And the
exactly.
break.
Sometimes parents say, "Well, he likes to drink Coke. Can I just get him a Diet Coke?" And so I guess the answer is a Diet Coke is slightly
Less
better than
calories.
yeah, slightly better than all the sugar coming in, but it does have all of these artificial things that also aren't good for you. So I would, yes, water by far is the best thing.
Okay,
Water, what did we
there.
say? Then a savory breakfast, and then to just take it out of the food realm, and really try to focus on overall health. The other thing that parents can do to help their kids is make sure their kids, especially their teens, are getting enough sleep. Because when our kids are sleep deprived, when we're sleep deprived, and I can speak from my personal experience, it's just so much harder to get through the next day with good decision making around food and around health habits. But especially for our kids, they need, depending on their ages, whatever, you could look up. how much sleep they actually require, and it will help every aspect of their life.
Yeah, love it. Really, I could just talk to you for another hour, but unfortunately, we don't have that time. I would love to get to talk to you again because there's so many other areas we could talk about. Like, anyways, I don't want to get
I
too
know,
much
it
off of
sounds like we
track.
have a lot in common.
Yes, and I would love to talk to you again. Really want people to like check out your resources and connect with you. So where can we find you?
I have a website, it's probably the easiest place, SheilaCarrollMD.com, www.SheilaCarrollMD.com. I'm also on Instagram with that same name, Sheila Carroll MD. I have a free resource for your parents if they're interested. It's called How to Make Parenting Around Food Feel Less Hard. And it kind of talks about parenting jobs around food and kid jobs around food. So if they go to my website, they can download that for free. And I have a blog that I post on, and I'm trying to put out trying to help parents be willing to make some little micro shifts like what you and I have been talking about, because they compound. Once you make one shift and you start to notice, like, oh, this is working. This feels good. Okay, what else? Let's add on another one and another one. And so our kids need our help. We are in this environment where we are have a little bit of a swimming upstream kind of phenomenon going to preserve our kids' good health. So they are desperate. You know, they may not know it, but they need our help. And we parents have so much more power than we realize, and we can really step into that and help our kids.
We do. I totally agree. And yeah, it's up to us. Like we're the CEOs of our households. We're the leaders. So it's up to us to shift them in the right direction. Well, thank you again, Sheila. This is an amazing conversation, and I hope we have one again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Maternity Leave. I hope you found value in this episode. Your support means the world. By subscribing, leaving a comment, and sharing this episode with another mom entrepreneur, you'll help it grow and reach more incredible guests who can share their insights and guidance. Until next time, take care, love on your loved ones, and make it happen. You got this.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.